We shouldn't have gone in, but the thrill of the abandoned construction site was too tempting. It loomed like a dark giant against the moonlit sky. It was me, Jack, Jen, and Ryan, caught in that youthful arrogance that made us believe we were invincible. Once inside, beams of our flashlights danced across concrete walls, casting eerie shapes that seemed to watch us. That's when we heard it. A scream so chilling it froze the breath in our lungs. Instead of running, my voice shaking more than I cared to admit. "We need to check it out," I insisted. We foolishly agreed to split up, each disappearing down separate corridors in search of the sound. It wasn't long before Jack's echoing scream shattered the silence. We raced through the maze of dimly lit passageways, skidding to a stop in a room where Jack lay pinned beneath a wild-eyed, disheveled man. His clothes were tattered, his hair matted and dirty, face lined with desperation. A surge of adrenaline pushed us forward, and together we wrestled Jack free from the man's grip. The old man, shockingly strong despite his frail appearance, finally relented, and we stumbled back, pulling Jack to his feet. Heart pounding in our ears, we fled to the safety of Ryan's car, breathless and shaken. Once we were on the road, with the abandoned site receding like a bad dream behind us, Jack finally spoke. "I don't know where he came from," he said, still pale. "When I walked in, the room was empty, or so I thought. I heard this little cough, and before I knew it, he was on me. It was like he appeared out of thin air." We sat in shocked silence, trying to piece it together, but the night offered no answers. Whatever had driven that man to attack Jack remains a mystery, and the experience left a scar on us all. We were lucky, so lucky, to escape. The thought of what could have happened if we hadn't gotten there in time still makes my skin crawl. I remember that night vividly, working late on a project in Maryland. It was just my coworker and me burning the midnight oil, but he had to leave early, leaving me alone with about an hour and a half left to finish up. About 20 minutes after my coworker left, I started hearing noises from the second floor. Hammering, indistinct chatter, the heavy thud of tools. It was strange, like someone was up there, hard at work. I initially dismissed it as echoes from earlier, but curiosity got the better of me. I called out, expecting my coworker to be playing some kind of prank. Silence. The sound ceased as I climbed the stairs, my own footsteps unnervingly loud against the backdrop of the hushed site. I pulled out my phone and dialed my coworker's number. No answer. Moments later, a message buzzed in. "I'm driving. Can't talk." The unease settled deeper in my bones. Determined to make sense of it, I called him again. When he finally answered, I explained what was happening. He chuckled nervously. "Dude, no way. I'm halfway home. Maybe it's Ben keeping you company." Ben. The name alone sent a shiver down my spine. He'd started with us but never got the chance to finish, cut down by a tragic accident on this very site. We never spoke about the details, out of respect and perhaps fear. With a false bravado, I shrugged off the eerie sensation and headed back downstairs. Then it started again. This time, mingled with the phantom construction sounds, was the unmistakable strain of a song Ben loved to play on repeat. An old classic, crackling like it came through a dusty radio. A sound both comforting and deeply unsettling in its familiarity. My heart raced. This was beyond reason. I texted my manager a simple message. "Leaving for the night, won't stay alone again." And with that, I fled the site. As I drove away, I pondered whether Ben was still there, watching over us, his work unfinished. Whatever it was, I was resolved never to test the boundaries of reason and the supernatural alone at that site again. It was a lesson learned too well. Some spirits linger in places where their stories ended too soon. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the unfinished buildings of the construction site. We stood at the edge, 5 of us, our hearts pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The site had been abandoned for the weekend, and we figured it was the perfect place to explore and have some fun. "Come on," It's going to be awesome. Jake, the ringleader of our little group, urged us on. He was always the one with the wild ideas, the one who could convince us to do just about anything. We slipped through a gap in the fence, the metal groaning slightly as it bent to let us through. Inside, the place was a maze of scaffolding, half-built walls, and piles of materials. It was like our own private playground, filled with possibilities. Let's see who can climb to the top of that scaffolding first. Mia challenged, pointing to a towering structure in the middle of the site. Her competitive spirit was infectious, and soon we were all racing to see who could reach the top first. As we climbed, laughter and taunts echoed around us, the thrill of being somewhere forbidden adding to the adrenaline rush. I was halfway up when I heard a noise below. I paused, looking down, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Shrugging it off, I continued to climb, reaching the top just as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. We sat there for a while, catching our breath and enjoying the view, feeling on top of the world. But then a scream shattered the tranquility. It was Alex, the quietest of our group, who had wandered off on his own. We scrambled down the scaffolding, hearts in our throats, following the direction of his voice. We found him near a stack of concrete blocks, his face pale and eyes wide with fear. Standing over him was a stranger, a man with wild eyes and clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks. He was muttering to himself, his hands clenched into fists. "Get away from him!" Jake shouted, trying to sound braver than he felt. The man turned to us, his gaze unfocused, as if he was seeing something else entirely. For a moment, none of us moved, caught in a standoff with this unexpected intruder. Then, without warning, the man lunged at Jake, his movements erratic and unpredictable. Instinct kicked in, and we all rushed forward, pulling Alex to his feet and dragging him away from the stranger. We ran, adrenaline fueling our escape, not stopping until we were back outside the fence, gasping for breath. Once we were safe, we called the police, our adventure turning into something far more serious than we'd anticipated. As we waited for them to arrive, we huddled together, the reality of what had happened sinking in. We had gone looking for fun and found danger instead. It was a night we would never forget, a reminder that some places are off limits for a reason. Working the overnight shift as a receptionist in a partially renovated building had its perks. Quiet nights, time to catch up on reading, and the occasional thrill of exploring the empty halls. But that Saturday night was different. Around midnight, I decided to stretch my legs and take a walk. The renovations were confined to the upper floors, and I was curious to see how things were progressing. As I walked outside and started my rounds and got to the part where the construction is happening, something caught my eye. A light flickered on in one of the construction areas. It was strange because I knew the lights should be off. It was the weekend, and no one was supposed to be working. My curiosity piqued. I headed up to investigate. The air was thick with the smell of sawdust and fresh paint as I approached the lit room. I hesitated for a moment before reaching in to switch off the light. As I turned to leave, a sound stopped me in my tracks. A soft, eerie laughter echoing down the hallway. My heart skipped a beat. I spun around, but the corridor was empty. Confused and a little unnerved, I retraced my steps, searching for the source of the laughter. But there was nothing, just the quiet hum of the building settling into the night. Shaking my head, I made my way back downstairs, trying to brush off the unsettling experience. I glanced up at the building. To my disbelief, the light was on again. A chill ran down my spine. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I grabbed my phone and headed back up, using its flashlight to guide my way. As I approached the room, the light suddenly clicked off, plunging the hallway into darkness. My pulse quickened, and I felt a growing sense of unease. Turning around, I decided it was time to leave. But then, the laughter echoed again, closer this time, sending a jolt of fear through me. I bolted, my footsteps pounding against the floor, and it felt like someone or something was right behind me. Once outside, I fumbled for my phone, dialing my boss with trembling fingers. When he finally answered, I recounted the night's events, my voice shaky. "That's odd," he said, sounding more intrigued than concerned. "There shouldn't be any electricity in that area. We had an issue earlier this week." As his words sank in, I looked back at the building. The light was on again, and this time I saw a shadowy figure standing in the window. My heart raced as I described it to my boss. His response was unexpected. "Just head home early. We'll discuss it tomorrow." The next day, my boss explained that the building had a reputation for paranormal activity. Construction workers had reported similar experiences, but I was furious. During my interview, I had specifically asked about the negative reviews and high turnover, but no one had mentioned ghosts. That was the last straw. I handed in my resignation, deciding that no job was worth enduring such terror. As I left, I couldn't help but glance back at the building, wondering what or who was really haunting those halls.